7 people died in the Luna Park ghost train fire. 6 boys, 6 children, and 1 man. And for years, people were told it's probably an accident. Maybe a cigarette, maybe a match. But the deeper you go into the case, the harder that is to accept, because witnesses spoke about kerosene. The lead investigator was pushing this electrical fault theory that experts just weren't backing and were saying it just doesn't line up. And before the site could even be examined, it was bulldozed. And so one of the reasons the case still sticks in people's minds is because these official explanations were never really settling anything. They just didn't line up to what was happening. And even in the inquest back in 1979, it didn't reach a firm cause. The coroner said that it couldn't be determined with certainty. And they said that the most probable explanation was flammable litter being set alight, or a cigarette or a match near this imitation fireplace in the ride. And, when you say it out loud, it just feels weak. 7 people are dead, and the best possible answer they can give is maybe it was a cigarette, And this, I think, is where all the doubt starts to creep in. These explanations just feel so thin. And it was only after people start looking closer into it that you realise that actually what happened in the hours after, the days after, lead to you seeing the truth that actually things are looking much worse. This was something much worse than just an accident.
Murder, cults, kidnapping.
Where the trail goes cold, we keep digging.
This is Dead Ends.
So the actual fire moved quite fast through the ride. People inside the ride were hit by smoke and heat as they were going through. And then suddenly it's just totally ablaze, and 7 people didn't make it out. And, before the public even had time to process what had happened, that same day, the lead inspector, Doug Knight, was pushing this electrical fault theory and saying that actually it was an issue with a fuse box that caused these sparks and then caused the ride to set alight. And this theory just didn't line up because actually, well, for one thing, that fuse box was the only thing still standing after the fire. It was the only thing that was seemingly untouched by fire. And actually, the electrical experts themselves just were saying this isn't very likely. And then we have James Smith, who was from the Sydney County Council, inspecting the site the day after the fire. And in his report, he actually says, we can't conclude exactly how or where the fire has started. But after that, we're still getting Doug Knight saying that he had been told it was an electrical fault. So actually we've got these experts inspecting it, but the lead investigator from the police is still pushing this theory that it was just an electrical fault. And that's what they're telling people. That's what they're running it with, And again, there's electrical engineers saying to the police that they weren't happy with what they found. And the police are just pushing this verdict. They want to put the case away. They want to put the case to bed and say that actually this was just an accident. It was nothing more than that, just a horrific accident. And so you've got this theory being pushed, and you've got these experts saying that's not true. And it's just starting not to line up. And as we look deeper into it, actually the problems become worse because Doug Knight, this same investigator, the same night he is overseeing the demolition of this place, and straight away, rather than closing down the crime scene, rather than actually giving space for experts to investigate the fire, within half of a day of the fire actually being put out, the wreckage was being bulldozed. That wreckage was being taken away, loaded into trucks. And, I think we can't overstate the importance of that, because if you're dealing with a fire which has killed people, surely, I'm no expert, but you would expect the scene to be closed down and to give as much time as possible to investigate what the actual cause of that fire was. Surely it will take more than half a day to verify the definite cause of fire. But we've got Doug Knight, the lead investigator from the police, once again, bulldozing the site so that nothing's preserved. Within half a day, it is just flat. You can see the pictures and it's just flat. There's nothing remaining of the ride. Gone. And, even you've got detectives from the New South Wales police saying later that actually, the scene was just demolished. It was just shot to pieces. There was firefighters from the day saying that it really seemed like the police wanted to clear it as fast as they possibly could. And so slowly we've got these blocks building up that are adding up to this case just not looking likely. The police are trying to push a theory that experts can't prove, that experts can't verify, that they can't get behind. And we've also got the fact that the site has been demolished so quickly that there's no time to even look into whether this was an accident. What was the cause of the fire? Were there any accelerants used? It's just gone. It's destroyed before you can test anything. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why this case has never just died, because it's hard to trust conclusions by officials which don't seem likely, which can't be backed up from a scene which has been destroyed. And after that, just everything they're saying starts to look even weaker, because there were witnesses, and especially some witnesses who were seeing this group they described them as bikies, like bikers, jeans, jackets type thing. And a man called Les Dowd later said he heard one of the group outside the ride saying, "I spread the kerosene out and I lit it with a match." So we've got this testimony that someone has heard someone outside the ride say they have spread kerosene, spread an accelerant, and lit it with a match. And then one of his friends apparently calls him a fool. Moments later, the ghost train, you see smoke coming out and it's completely on fire. And again, you've got multiple witnesses describing these bikies as they describe them, biker type men around the ride looking really sketchy, saying these things and then getting off after this. And even the ghost train operator said he's seen that some of these people we've described as bikies are actually going through the ride just before the fire was noticed. So sort of 10 minutes before the fire was noticed, the ride operator has seen these same men going through the ride. Again, so many witnesses are saying this, and people are actually saying, there's a guy, Greg Chard, who was on the ride and said that he smelled kerosene, or what he believed was kerosene, around this area, around this imitation fireplace, which was thought to be the start of the fire. And that testimony that he smelled the kerosene was recorded in his police statement, but it was never given as evidence at the inquest. And you have all these facts, again, just building up against what the police are saying. They're saying it's an accident, it's an electrical fault, nothing suspicious, but you've got all these witnesses coming forward with evidence of suspicious individuals who are never interviewed, who are never brought in, of people saying they've spread kerosene, of people saying they've smelt kerosene, of the ride operator saying these same suspicious individuals have been on the ride just before it is setting on fire. Everything is pointing to this is not an accident, but this isn't what's coming out. It's coming out, again, the inquiry is saying it's inconclusive, police are saying it's an accident, and they're just wanting to close down this case as soon as they possibly can. Everything keeps hitting roadblocks. There's police prosecutor, Brian Wedderburn. He asked the police to investigate the arson theory, but kept hitting roadblocks. And he said Knight's conduct would be, he quoted, "the worst instance you could have of preventing the course of justice." And that if he'd have known what later emerged about Knight, alarm bells would have gone off. He would have stopped the inquest. And everything is just centered around these people, this police corruption, and the fact that they're trying to hide it. But why? Why is Doug Knight trying to hide it? And this is where things get even, I guess, juicier. This is where Abe Saffron and motive comes into this. So if you know anything about this area during that time, Abe Saffron was kind of the criminal boss of this area. He owns all these different clubs and areas, and he's kind of heading up this criminal underbelly. He's having parties, and again, at these parties, his people who have been at these parties are reporting that people like Doug Knight, key police individuals, and even key politicians are seen associating with this known criminal, Abe Saffron. And so how does he fit into this Luna Park fire? Well, after the fire, the company that won control of the area Luna Park's on, which was right prime real estate right next to the bay in Sydney, that was run by one of Saffron's cousins. It was a company called Hal and Col Goldstein, and his nephew, Sam Cooper. And so they take control of this area, which was Luna Park, after it's had to be sold following the fire. And they put in all these gaming machines, like gambling machines, at Luna Park. And so when we're talking about motive, it's not just like some vague thing about maybe someone's done it to get that land, which would have had real high value. A known criminal who's known to associate with police who are part of this investigation has gained control of this land through his relatives. And that is strong motive. Obviously, it doesn't prove that he's done it, but looking at the evidence, looking at how the police are trying to shut down the whole investigation, looking at how they're trying to hide the evidence, it seems highly likely that actually these people are trying to cover up for these criminals so that they can get their hands on this land. So, who was Doug Knight? So police later describe him as a fixer. So a man who's manipulating evidence, intimidating witnesses, taking bribes, and there's this case that emerges around him and just all this evidence that police got the Luna Park investigation wrong and that it was just completely shut down so that it could be covered up. And there's never been a conclusive answer to this. You know, we just have these bits of evidence that the theory that it's an electrical fault being pushed, the shutting down of the arson case, people not being able to pursue that, witnesses not being brought forward in inquests. We have all these bits of evidence, people smelling kerosene, people hearing people say they've spread kerosene. All this evidence builds up, but still nothing has been done to say conclusively that actually this was definitely a cover-up so that criminals could get their hands on this, you know. But when you look at it, it does look likely. It looks like this is arson, 100%. It looks that this has been linked to a known criminal in the area who's then, through his family, got control of that land, which is highly valuable land. And, you know, further from this, you get names like Lionel Murphy and Neville Wran, who was the Premier of New South Wales, and they, again, are coming up, and we can't prove their involvement or connection to Abe Saffron, but we do know that they were seen talking with him, they were seen at these parties he's hosting, they've been seen by people there, and all these allegations build around them as well of cover-ups. And the question really, I don't think is, was this a cover-up? Was this criminals getting their hand on this location? The question really is, how deep did this go? Was this just some corrupt police? Was this deeper? Was this government level? Who knew? And who was going to benefit from this and who did benefit from this? And I think they're the questions we're left with. you know, we've had this fire which has resulted in death, which has tried to be shut down as an accident, and we know there are police who are corrupt and involved. But how deep does this go? You know, it's not conclusive whether government people such as Neville Wran were involved, but what do you think? Do you think these men were involved? Do you think this goes deeper than just police? How deep does this go? We'd love to know your thoughts, and we'd love to know more about this case. If you have any more information, we'd love to just dig a little deeper and to see what really happened, because I think obviously this is a cover-up. But how deep does this go? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you've got this far into the video, thank you for watching. We'd love you to hit like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. We post all the time, this sort of stuff, murder, kidnapping, cults, and we'd love to share that with you and sort of journey with you. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you at the next Dead End. Goodbye.